Welcome, everybody. It's nice to have you here. So what I'd like to talk to you about today is the importance of understanding the story that you tell yourself. I think a lot of the time we don't even realize that we're telling a story. We think that we're somehow experiencing something that's just objectively out there happening. And if we don't realize that it's quite different than that, then life will be quite challenging with very few opportunities for us to do anything different. And so that's why understanding that you're telling a story and understanding the importance of the story that you're telling is very, very important. It makes a huge difference. It opens up new opportunities for you. It allows you to be empowered so that you can actually start to choose in your life in ways that work for you, because wouldn't that be nice? Because if you are going through life not realizing that you have choice, not realizing that you actually get to make choices in your life, then that's going to be a very difficult life. And I would say that it seems as though that's how a lot of people are living their life, as though they don't really have any options or choices. And as I'm saying here, a lot of that can be remedied by understanding that it's about the story that you're telling. So I want to take a little bit of time to explore that today. So I guess to start with, just to make it clearer, the context of what it is that I'm sharing here is to notice that what you experience is actually experienced through your subjective senses. So a lot of the time we allow ourselves to believe that there is an objective reality that we are experiencing. And language often adds to this kind of illusion, because we talk about objects and relationships with objects. And so we have this idea that we're interacting with an objective world. However, if you pay attention to what's actually going on, like right now, you could just observe right now and notice that right now, what you're actually experiencing is entirely subjective. What you're actually experiencing is happening very intimately through your senses. So you could try and see right now if you can find anything that's happening outside of your senses. And if you find something, then my question to you would be, how do you know about that? You see how that works? Everything that you know through your senses. And even the things that you would call the past, memories and so-called facts that you're drawing upon as evidence for how things are and how you know what things are, all of that is also presently experienced through your senses. So just want to take a moment to make sure that that's clear. So notice right now, presumably, you're looking at a screen and you're hearing my voice, right? And so the conditioning for most of us is to think, I'm sitting here and the screen is over there, and then there's Joey on the screen, but he's really somewhere else, and his voice is being transmitted somehow magically through the technology, and then it's coming to my ears and I'm hearing it. And so we think, I'm experiencing this thing that's objective, that's out there. Well, how do you actually know about that? What is the actual experience? The actual experience, well, let's try this out. If you're courageous and you're not presently driving or something like that, and it's safe for you to close the eyes, you could try closing your eyes. So now you're still hearing my voice, supposedly. With your eyes closed, where is that voice actually being heard? Where is the actual hearing happening? Not just the sound of my voice, but any hearing that might be taking place right now. So there are other sounds that you might be hearing. And if you just pay attention to what the actual experience is the hearing happening at a distance from you? Is the hearing happening outside of you? And then you could also explore in a similar way with sensation. So by sensation, I should clarify the feeling, like tactile sense. And so you have certain feelings that you're experiencing. And you could just notice whether those are happening outside of you or if they're happening actually inside of you. So your mind might tell you that those sensations are evidence of something that's outside of you. Like you might experience some sensations that your mind tells you are evidence that you're sitting on something. If you are sitting on something, that is, right? And so your mind might say that those sensations mean a chair. The sensations mean something outside of me. But notice that the sensations are actually experienced inside of you, not outside of you. And then if your eyes are still closed, I invite you to slowly open them. And the reason to slowly open them is just so that you're not shocked by all of that information, and just start to take it in really, really slowly. And notice, if you pay attention closely, where is all of that actually experienced? It's actually happening here. It's not happening out there. It's just a trick of the mind and language that says it's happening out there. But the actual direct experience is that it's happening right here. Or put another way, can you actually find a separation between what you perceive as out there and the perceiving that's happening right here? Furthermore, can you find a separation between you, the perceiver, and the act of perceiving? Is there any division to be found? Can you find that space between those things? And if you're like most of us, you can't, because I'm pretty sure it doesn't exist. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying that you experience everything subjectively. So the mind is conditioned to imagine things, that there's an interaction with an objective reality. But the only evidence for that interaction with an objective reality is subjective sensing. So that's the basis, that's the foundation of what I want to explore today. And if that's new to you, then it's possible that will take a little bit of exploring for that to actually start to click for you. But it's well worth doing. I would certainly encourage you to continue to explore that continually, regularly, over time, because that can be very helpful. And how that can be helpful will hopefully be clarified with the rest of the exploration today. So now, if it is true, as I'm proposing, and as I'm suggesting that you can actually discover directly for yourself, that you're only experiencing a subjective reality, not an objective reality, then how do you know what any of this is and what it means? I suppose this would be true even if there was an objective reality, but we're taking it even a step further by clarifying that it's only a subjective reality. How do you know what any of it is? How do you know that any of the things that you think you know? Just think about all the things you think you know. Think about the things you think you know about yourself, and then think about the things that you think you know about other people, and think about the things that you think you know about the world and how it all works and what it all means. How do you know that? What's the basis of that? Especially when you consider that actually all that you know is some sound and some light and color and shape and movement and some tactile sense and proprioceptive sense. I mean, that's all that's going on. So how do you know what it means? I'm proposing that the only way you know what it means is by the story that you tell. And that's why the story that you tell is so powerful. But for most people, most of the time, the story seems to be invisible. So it's this force that's there that is profoundly influencing every moment. And yet, for most people, it's completely invisible. They don't even know that it exists. They don't even know that they're telling a story. They think that life is happening to them. They think life is out there. Life is all about the circumstances and the situations and the conditions and the events and the people and everything that that's doing to them. And so they're waiting for all that other stuff to change. You know, I'll get to live my life. I'll get to be happy when, fill in the blank, right? When all the other stuff happens, when all the other stuff changes, when the government changes, when the economy changes, when my spouse changes, when my parents change, when the weather changes, right? Then I'll get to be happy. Then I'll be free. Then I'll be okay. So, wouldn't that be amazing to actually be empowered to choose your life instead of waiting for those outer things to change that you don't actually have any power to change by your own declaration, right? I mean, if you say those things exist out there, then you cannot change them. Now, where sometimes people go with this is they make this leap. They say, well, if everything is happening within me, then, and if it's all a story, then I could change it however I want. And I could snap my fingers and suddenly all the people will treat me nicely and the weather will always be great and we'll put an end to all war and all animal cruelty will come to an end. And, you know, it'll be rainbows and roses for everybody forever. And that's going to be the answer. Well, that sounds nice. And if that's working for you, great. I wonder, though, there's this idea of that maybe it's wise to walk before you run. I don't know. You know, I'm not going to tell you that you have to do it that way. But it's maybe the way that I have found that tends to work a little better for me. Because when I tried to do it the other way, when I tried to say, well, I should be able to snap my fingers and make the conditions all change to those which I prefer and still make my okayness conditional upon those things, that did not work very well. What I have found, though, is that changing the story works very well. So if you're willing to take those steps, if you're willing to walk before you run, this is my proposal, is work at the story level, change the story. Because that's something that is easily within reach for everybody. I say easily within reach. It's easily within reach. Everybody could start to change the story a little bit today. So there's so many layers here. So I don't think that it's realistic to cover all of that in an hour, but I can just start to scratch the surface, just so that maybe this will start to make a little bit of sense. So to provide kind of narrow the context a little bit, I'd like to start with just put this in the context of attainment of desires. So if we think about, so there are many stories, many different types of stories, but I just want to kind of narrow it down to one specific type of story, because we're working with many different types of stories. So I just want to, for learning purposes, just focus on one type of story. And this is a very popular kind of story. Works very well for novels in Hollywood. It's the hero's journey. So this is a type of story, a category of story that was very famously defined by Joseph Campbell, and he called this a monomyth, and I don't know what he meant by that. Certainly, it's not the only type of myth, because there are other types of stories, but it is, as I say, it's a very popular kind, and so it's really this. It's the type of it's a story of attainment. So we often want to attain things in our lives, whether those are material things or spiritual things. So material things might be like you want the money, or you want the improved health, or you want improvements in relationship. And then the spiritual things, as I'm using the term, would be, could be, it's a broad category, but it includes very simple kinds of things, such as greater inner peace, just as an example. So, and the reason I point out that there are these two broad categories, material and spiritual, is because both of these are addressed within the framework of this story of the hero's journey. Because I'll just broadly, I'll give you the basic framework. So the basic framework, you've seen the hero's journey play out in many popular stories. It's very, very, very commonly used. It's consciously used by many people who craft stories since Joseph Campbell produced his body of work. Many people use it because it works really well. It creates compelling stories. It's a basic formula. If you follow the formula, you'll have a pretty good story that people will be interested in, because it speaks to something that's very primal. Okay, so the basic arc of that is that you've got the hero. The hero, on the surface, there's something that there's a need, and that need could be something like there's a monster who's attacking the villagers, and the only thing that is going to stop the monster is this very special cup that can only be found in this cave high up on a mountain somewhere far away. Okay. And so the hero undertakes this journey to go to this distant mountain and go up to the top of the mountain and then go into the deep cave in the mountain and, undergo all these tests in order to get the cup and bring it back to the village so that the monster can be defeated, so that the village will be safe. So that's the story on the surface. That's the motivation. There's some outer thing that needs to be done because it's important for whatever reason to the hero. So this is like, you want more money, you want better health, you want improvements in your relationship, you want you want a relationship of some kind. You feel isolated. You want to have some kind of success in relationship. You want something. You want the Ferrari. You want the new house. You want the vacation. You want whatever you want. Okay, so you want something. So this is the outer aspect. Now, as the hero is undertaking this journey, invariably, because it's part of the hero's journey, he or she discovers that there's actually an inner journey that's happening as well. So on the surface, it was about getting the cup in the mountain to save the village. But once this hero is far enough and along in the journey, especially at that point where they cannot really realistically turn back, it starts to be revealed that there's something else going on. This is the point, like in the story, there's starts to be this turning point where it starts to become more inner focused. There starts to be this realization that it's maybe the outer goal is still important, and maybe sometimes it's not. Depends on the story, right? Sometimes the outer goal is still important, still want to save the village, but there's also this revelation that there's something internally that's important. It's like, we realize the hero has a problem in their relationship with their parents, where they don't, their parents are saying, we want you to be a lawyer, and the hero is like just going along with it because they don't feel empowered to let their parents know that, really I want to be a hairdresser, like that's my calling, is I'm just meant to be a fabulous hairdresser. And so there's this inner journey that's taking place as well, where the inner resources that are necessary for the hero to be authentic are revealed, and they start to connect with those inner resources, so that by the end of the story, when they return to the village with the cup or without the cup, then there's also, then there's the meeting with the parents, and the parents are saying, and, now that you've come back from your journey, we expect you to go back to school to, continue your studies to be a lawyer so that you can make us proud. And there's some inner transformation which allows for something different to happen in that relationship. So, it's not just about, because anybody could hand that character a script and say, say these things to your parents. Say, no, I'm not going to be a lawyer. I have a deep inner calling to be a fabulous hairdresser. But that's not going to work unless there's an inner transformation. So there has to be an inner transformation in order for that to work. So this is the basic hero's journey. Okay. And along the way by the way, it's not a very interesting story unless there are obstacles that are overcome, right? Because otherwise it's like, and in the beginning and now the end. The middle is all of the challenge. The middle is where the learning and the growing takes place. So that's the juicy bit. That's what's really interesting. That's what we connect with. We're enticed by the beginning and the end. That's the bit where it's like, ooh, I want to, the beginning hooks you, and the end is what keeps you there all along. But only in the end do you realize, well, it was really the middle that I cared about. The middle is where the good stuff happens, because that's the transformation. So in our lives, we have things that we want to achieve. You've heard me talk about this before, probably, right? We have things that we want to achieve. We have desires. We have things that we want to accomplish. whether that's the Ferrari or the new job or the new relationship or the improvements in the existing relationship or the improvements in the health or whatever it is. We've got those. And if we tell ourselves the wrong story, then this is going to be very unpleasant. And so you could just notice the stories that you tell yourself. And I can't tell you exactly what the wrong story would be because there are pretty much infinite ways to tell the wrong story. But you could just notice for yourself, what story do you tell yourself? Yeah, so some people, they tell themselves, I'm just going to give you some examples. Remember, there's infinite variations on this ways, different, wrong, incorrect, unhelpful ways to tell yourself the story. But you could tell yourself, it's impossible. You could tell yourself, I don't have what it takes. You could tell yourself, this is miserable. You could tell yourself that, other people can succeed, but I can't. You could tell yourself that, I'm just, I just have bad luck. You could tell yourself, I was, I think there was a mistake made. I was not meant to be here, but somehow through some error, I ended up here. You ever told yourself that one? Like somehow the angels made a mistake and they dropped me off in the wrong place. I don't know how I ended up here. I'm not meant to be here. You can tell yourself, and then you can tell yourself, I don't even want it anyway. It's the sour grapes, which works if it's true, but that's why you have to be really honest with yourself. Because it's really helpful not to cling to things that you don't actually want, but it's definitely not helpful to tell yourself that you don't want the things that you do want. And part of this has to do with the inner and the outer, because the inner and the outer journeys are linked. That's what they go together. So in the hero's journey, there's the inner and the outer that go together. It's not going to be very interesting if it's only one or the other. They go together. Why? Because in our lives, that's how it works. So sometimes what happens is we can tell the story. We say, well, I don't care about any of those things. Nothing matters. Nothing matters at all. And this is this sort of, people get themselves, it's sort of like this nihilistic trap. Nothing matters. Nothing matters. And it's a half truth. If you've seen something and you're basing your proclamation that nothing matters and you don't really care or need anything on some authentic glimpse or authentic realization, then the problem is just that it's a half truth. Sure, on some level you don't care. On some level it doesn't matter. Absolutely. But if you tell the truth, on another level it does matter to you. And again, not for all things, right? So if you think about, I'm sure you can think of plenty of things in your life that you think you want, but if you really were to tell the truth, you don't care about that at all. But there are some things that you do care about. And you can try and deceive yourself and tell yourself that you don't care, but you're lying to yourself. And you know the difference. And if you're telling yourself that you don't care about the things that you do care about, then what good is that going to do you? So it can be helpful to use the stories, consciously tell yourself the stories using frameworks that are actually going to help you. Because you have a desire fundamentally for transformation. But you use the story as a way to help yourself with that. So if you're not using the proper stories, if you're not using the proper frameworks for the stories that you're telling, then you're less likely to get the outcome that you want. So the ultimate aim is the inner transformation, but the vehicle for that goes along with it is the outer journey. So because in this life, it's about movement. The stories are about movement. And if you're not moving, then there's no development that's happening. So then there's a stagnation. So you're not actually transforming anything. So you're just keeping yourself stuck. And that people can keep themselves stuck in that trap for a long time, justifying it, saying, oh, this is very spiritual. It's very spiritual to not want anything. It's very spiritual to stay stuck. I'm going through a dark night of the soul for the last 50 years. Look how spiritual I am. So what I'm proposing is that you can actually start to help yourself by utilizing these frameworks. And so in just exploring this the hero's journey, you can understand that knowing what you want is important in that process, and being honest about it. And then allowing yourself to get to that point of no return. Because you can have a lot of half-assed starts. You like, I'm going for it. And you take a few steps and then you say, oh, it's too hard. I don't like it. It's uncomfortable. People might not approve of me. I might get hurt. And so you turn back. But you have to allow yourself to get beyond that point of no return so that you can fully commit to the entire process. So that's one thing. And you're not likely to do that with things that don't actually matter to you. So this is why I encourage people to actually take the time to get clear on what you really want. Because if you're using your time making lots of half-assed attempts but never actually completing anything, then you've basically done nothing. If you think about your life in terms of movement, then if you're wanting to go from, if we define transformation, and I'm just going to define it this way just for the sake of talking about it, if we say that transformation is going to be from point A to point B, we'll just say then if you start at point A and then you take a step toward point B and they say, I don't know, it's not for me, it's too hard. He's okay, back at point A. But then it's still in you. It's like, but point B, I long for point B. And you say, okay, fine, I'm going to do it again. You set out on your journey to point B, and you say, oh, but I don't think I'm prepared. Okay, you turn back, you're at point A. And you just keep repeating this over and over and over for, 1 decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, 4 decades, 5 decades. You get to the end of your life, you're still at point A. And you could say, well, but look, I had a rich life full of so many experiences. Really? Really? Tell the truth. Not so much. Because the longing, the purpose, the desire was to complete that journey, to go to point B, to have that complete experience. If you have not had that complete experience, then that longing is still in you. You say, yeah, but I long for point B. So it's important to know what is it that you want, because only when you know what you truly want are you going to be willing to do what it takes to complete that experience. So that's number one, is to actually take some time on a regular basis to have clarity about what you really want. And then once you have that clarity, then to allow yourself to actually follow through on it with the understanding that there are going to be challenges along the way. Because the other thing that I see happen for people is they say, well, I want to manifest. I want to manifest $50 million. This is usually coming from people who don't have. They've not even manifest $20, and they want to manifest $50 million. So right away, more often than not, raises a red flag for me. I think you haven't actually taken a look to see what you really want, because it's basically meaningless at that point. Well, we call whatever, you can call it $1 billion. It's all the same to you, because you don't even know what that is. So you've got to have some skin in the game. It's got to actually matter to you. It's got to be important. Not attaining it has to be painful to you. Otherwise, you're not going to do it. So get clear on what you really want. Take some time each day, every day, at least a few minutes, just to contemplate what actually matters to you. What do you really want? Then, as I say, commit to it. So this is why I encourage, identify what are the things that really, 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 truly matter to you, that you're willing to actually commit to follow through on. And then each day, remind yourself of that. Remind yourself of what's important to you, because otherwise, you know as well as I do, that you're just going to fall back into the old story. The old story is what's comfortable. And it's not even comfortable, but it's what's familiar. And so we tend to just continue to do the same old, same old. And we excuse it, again, because of the stories we tell ourselves. Well, I have to. I don't have any choice, if I don't keep doing the same thing, then what about the cats? How are the poor cats? You know what? The cats will be fine. I mean, as long as, the cats will be happy as long as they've got the kibbles and they've got a bed, and, they'll be happy. You're just telling yourself this story. Oh, I have to keep living the life that's not that's not actually on purpose. That's not meaningful. The life that feels basically empty. I have to keep doing that because of the cats, because of the marriage, because of the kids, because of this, because of that. Okay, you get to do that, but just notice what you're doing. You're telling yourself a story, and you lull yourself back into the same old. It has this narcotic effect. So there you go. You're right back in it. But the benefit of having clarity about what is important to you and then reminding yourself of that every day is that it starts to become clear to you that the pain of not being honest about that, not taking steps in harmony and in alignment with that is too great. So remind yourself of it. It's like, so the monster is attacking the village. Every night the monster comes and eats some child. And everybody in the village, they're like, oh, it's so terrible. What are we going to do about it? Somebody's got to do something about it. And they're all looking at one another. You got to do something about it. You do something about it. It's easy to do that, right? Oh, it's so terrible. Somebody should do something. But somebody's never going to do anything. You can do something, right? This is like, someday never comes. Somebody never comes. Somebody is a fiction. You can do something. If you're waiting for somebody, you'll wait forever. Because then you're just waiting for some outer circumstances to change. So you have a calling within yourself. Heed that calling. Be truthful about it. And when you remind yourself of that every day, then, as I say, the pain of not being truthful to that will be too great. You will find yourself that the conditions of your life will conspire so that you will be basically pushed into it. That's the power of it. When you start to actually provide yourself with the seeds for the new story, then the new story starts to form. So then you're there, and you're in the thick of it. Okay, so now you find yourself, you've perhaps beyond the point of no return. So you can't, too late to turn back. You've fully bought in at this point. You're doing the things. You've changed something. You've taken steps. Now, as I say, there are going to be challenges. Why? Why are there challenges? So a lot of people say, oh, why are there challenges? It's not fair. Because the nature of this world is that it's all crafted in the story. But the story has certain it gets to a point once the story has been emphasized, repeated enough, it gets to a point where it has a kind of hypnotic effect. And so it has this kind of sense of solidity to it. It resists change. This is why if you're waiting for things out there to change, you'll be waiting for a very, very long time, because the things out there are really just the result of that story that's been repeated over and over and over and over and over, so that it's created this hypnosis. So the likelihood of that changing without you choosing the change is very, very small. So most people are just going to they're just going to keep doing things in the same way, keep reinforcing the same old narrative. This is how it is. This is who we are. This is how it works. It's not fair. We're all victims. We're just waiting for the savior to come and fix everything. So you can choose differently. And you have to understand that when you do that, there will be resistance. There will be challenges, because you're now going against the status quo. The status quo is the old story is what resulted in the monster coming and eating the children every night. You're wanting to change that. In order to change that, you're going against what's already there. So there's going to be challenge. Now, fundamentally, I think it's only good news, is that all of that is really in you. All of the challenge is experienced in you. Remember that everything that you experience is experienced subjectively. So whatever challenge you experience, It's only an internal challenge. If you think that the challenge is exclusively an external challenge, then you're more often than not, you're going to feel powerless. You'll feel that you don't have what it takes. But when you remember that it's an internal challenge, then you have what it takes. So you can look within yourself and notice what is the actual challenge that you're experiencing. And so, give you an example. So you want $1 million, okay, and you've gotten clear that having $1 million is actually really, really important to you for whatever reason. And everybody's for somebody out there, having $1 million is really a true desire. It's really important. So if that's your true desire, if that's really, really important, and you've done that work and you've clarified and you say, a lot of these other things I can let go of, but this thing I can't let go of. This thing, if I get to the end of my life and I haven't made the $1 million, I'm going to have regret, because this is important for me. This is why I'm here. So now you set out on this journey to make $1 million. Now along the way, you're going to encounter some challenges. Like, for example, say, gee, I don't even know where to begin. So that's challenge number one. You don't even know where to begin. So you could say, well, it's not fair that I didn't get the right schooling. I don't have the right, I didn't get born into the right family. I was not born in the right country. I was not born at the right time. Whatever reasons. You can come up with all kinds of reasons externally why. But what are you going to do about that? Instead, though, what you can do is you can notice that the real challenge is happening within you. So you just observe that, find out what are those beliefs that you have that are structuring your experience, that when you encounter them, it stops you. And you could release those. You could notice within yourself how you physically react. You could notice if you withdraw, if you freeze, if you tense up in the face of challenge, and you could choose to change that. You could choose to relax. You could choose to face it. You could choose to slow down your internal process, so that you start to discover that you have more options. Because the options are there, the options exist, but we blind ourselves to the options because of our habitual reactions to things. So when we encounter challenges, again, think about if we frame this in terms of a journey. So we're wanting to get from point A to point B. Between point A and point B, you are likely to encounter certain obstacles. You thought that, you got an old map that says, follow this route from point A to point B. But things have changed. There was like a landslide that happened since that old map was made that blocks the path. So now you're on your journey and like, oh, there's a landslide. The path is blocked. Now, what are you going to do? You have options. You could say, well, all is lost. Let's turn back home. Give up on the whole thing. Just go back home. You could just stay there paralyzed, just stuck. You're like, but I have to go forward and the path is blocked. I have to go forward. The path is blocked. All is lost. I have to go forward. The path is blocked. You could just stay stuck there. Or you could actually relax, slow down, face this thing, and just notice, okay, what options are available to me? I'm going to point B. That's a given. I'm going to do that. What are the options available to me? what could I do here? Can I go over it? Can I go under it? Can I go around it? Was there some alternate path if I backtrack a mile or so? Was there some alternate path that I could take? You just start to realize you have options, but you have to actually know what your goal is, and you have to orient yourself and put yourself in the right state so that you're resourceful enough to be able to access those options. So this is an important part of telling the story, is that when you're wanting to tell a new story in your life, you have to be willing to have that presence and resourcefulness. You have to access your options. If you don't access the options, then you're just going to throw your hands up in the air and say, oh, all is lost. I can't do anything. That's nonsense. If you're committed to what you're wanting, you will find a way. So again, that's the importance of being clear about what you really want, because if you're wasting your time on things that you don't really want, then, that's just a bad situation. It's just a big waste of time and energy. So know what you want, and then just commit with the understanding that there will be challenges. Guess what? Challenges aren't a problem. Challenges are the opportunity, because challenges offer you more knowledge about what it is that you need in order to make that transformation. If you could get what you really wanted just by getting on a plane and arriving at the destination, you want to sign up for that? Does that sound interesting to you? I don't know if this is true, but I think it certainly is plausible because it makes sense. I heard that they years ago they built this test. I don't know who they were. Some group of people built a thing called Biosphere, which was this. You could Google it, Biosphere. It was this test thing where they built a big sphere that was a self-contained environment, and some people lived in there for some amount of time, and they wanted to be totally self-sufficient, so they were producing all their own food and so forth. Well, what I heard, and I have not verified that this is true, but again, it's plausible, is that because they didn't have any wind inside of their biosphere, so the plants all ended up just falling over, because the plants need the wind in order to actually develop the proper structure. Otherwise, they don't have adequate structure. So we're all like that. We need to encounter those challenges in order to be able to learn what it is that we want, to learn about ourselves. Otherwise, you just stay stuck. Nothing really fundamentally changes. You go here, you go there, flying on a jet to this place and to that place, and nothing's really changed. So the challenges are not bad. The challenges are the opportunity for us to learn what we want to learn and have what it is that we want to have. That's part of the process. So again, telling the proper story is useful, because if you encounter things in your life and you say, oh, this sucks, it's not fair, I don't like it, I'm depressed, then that's your experience. But when you have clarity about what you want, and you're telling the story properly so that you understand, the challenge is the opportunity. It's the opportunity for me to actually achieve what I want to achieve, for me to know what I want, for me to experience this inner transformation so that I can know myself, so that I can achieve the fulfillment of my purpose in this life. Yeah, it's like, is the purpose to make $1 million? Is that really what your purpose is in life? Is your purpose to have the perfect body? Is your purpose to have, have amazing sex every day of your life? Is that really your purpose? Probably not. But those might be vehicles that allow you to undergo that transformation, because there's the outer and the inner. The outer is, again, the hero going to the mountain to get the thing. And then the inner transformation goes part and parcel with that. And that's what we really care about. If you think about it, in any story that's important, that's meaningful to you, any story that movie or book that you've read, it would fall flat if there was no inner transformation. It's like hero, goes on the journey, gets the thing, comes back, everybody's saved. What do you do? Not that important. It's like, not that important. Not that important. So, but it's important in as much as it provides the vehicle for the inner transformation. So they go together. So again, I'm just suggesting that there's a lot in this. So it was not the most focused of talks, but there's a lot of information in there, but I'll just try to highlight some of the key points. So number one, the story that you tell yourself matters a great deal. The what's happening out there is not even happening out there, at least not as far as you know. What you're telling yourself about it is shapes how you're experiencing it. And so if you focus on what you think is happening out there, and you think that all that stuff needs to change, that's a setup for misery. But if you start to actually notice that what's really important is the story that you're telling yourself, then you reclaim your power and you have the ability to make changes. You're not waiting around for other people to change. You're not waiting around for circumstances to change. You actually have the ability to start making that change now. And one of those important stories is the story of attainment. And so it's a really, really important story in our lives. So having clarity about what you want is really important in that, because if that's the central piece, that's what everything centers around. In the story of attainment, you have to actually attain something, or at least strive to attain it. So you have to know what that is. And it has to be important. As I say, you have to have skin in the game. If you're just, on a whim choosing things because, like you saw an advertisement or your friend has something or whatever, that's not going to do it for you. That's not going to allow you to actually get invested. It's not going to allow you to experience the inner transformation. So find out what really matters to you. That's important. And then the other flip side of that is, don't make the mistake of telling yourself that nothing matters, because that's a trap. That's a trap that people who get into spirituality or philosophy can find themselves in, where they say, it's all meaningless, it's all pointless, it's all an illusion, nothing matters at all. And it's just self-deception, because you do actually care. You care about something. And so get clear about that. What hurts you? What would be too painful to you not to achieve? And it doesn't have to be about getting the $1 million. It doesn't have to be something like that material. But nonetheless, there's something that matters to you. And so be honest about that. And then actually undertake that journey and be fully committed to it. Don't back out. Then keep telling yourself the story in the proper way so that you're framing things in ways that are useful to you when you encounter challenges, which you will. Keep telling yourself that these are challenges which are helping you to gain more clarity. Because if you don't do that, then you're likely to either, as I say, run away from the challenge or just stay stuck. But when you recognize and tell yourself that this is an opportunity to learn and grow, you're going to then view it in that way, and you're going to interact with the challenge in that way, which will open you to the resources and knowledge and options which you need in order to progress. So this can make the attainment of your goal much faster. That's one benefit. And it will be much more enjoyable to you. So keep framing it in that way. And then also recognize that there's both outer and inner aspects of the journey. And they do go together. Now, sometimes it does happen along the way that the shift to the inner replaces the outer entirely. It does sometimes happen. But that's not always going to be the case. In fact, it's usually not the case. But it can sometimes happen. When it happens, you will know that that is the truth. Don't lie to yourself and say that it's the truth when it's not. So like, to use the example, if the hero is wanting to save the village from the monster, then probably in most cases, saving the village from the monster continues to be important, even though there's also the revelation of the inner transformation. So the inner also is important. The outer is also important. In some cases, the pursuit is, initially is, I've got to, make the money. I've got to win the competition. I've got to prove that I'm, big and strong. I've got whatever. That's the outer attainment. And sometimes it happens, not always, but sometimes it happens that through that journey, the importance of that is replaced by the inner. And there are plenty of examples of how that works out in popular stories. So you can see, think about like Rocky as an example of that. So, it's like, sorry if this is spoiler alert. Okay, if you plug your ears, if you don't want to know, but Rocky Balboa does not win the fight at the end of the first movie. Yeah, there you go. But it doesn't. But that was not important. Because there was something else that was discovered. But you have to know that for yourself, and you can only know that by actually getting engaged. So you engage through the story that you're telling. Make it a useful story. Make it a story that actually helps you. So if you're just waiting for something else to change, if you're waiting for something else to happen, for you to have permission to be okay, you'll be waiting for a long time. So for those who are here live, I'm happy to stand for group coaching. People are eager, ready to go. And for those who are watching this on YouTube, or who will watch this on YouTube, I just want to make a few mentions. Number one, if you're interested in joining these calls live, you're welcome to do so. You can get more information And you can get that information by signing up for my newsletter at joeylott.com. And when you do join, then you have the opportunity to participate in the group coaching, which happens immediately following. And there's already 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people who are eager, hands raised. So that's an awesome opportunity and reason to sign up. You also, when you do sign up, you get access immediately to the ebook, which covers 5 of the fundamental laws which govern creation. And when you understand those laws, that will allow you to have more ability to consciously create your experience. So that's also there. And then I just want to mention that I also offer a paid program, which is called Manifesting Truth. And I do encourage people to check that out because it is the best way that I have to be able to share with people and guide people and coach people to be able to achieve what they want in their life. It's really an awesome opportunity. It's 9 weekly lessons where I've simplified what are the core things that a person needs to know and have be able to master in order to be able to have what they really want in life. And so it's really simplified, which is great because it makes this very accessible for all people, even people who are very busy. And then the best part of it, in my opinion, is that through that program, I offer daily support for everybody who's participating in that program for the duration of their participation. There's nothing else like that I know of. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, you can check that out at joeylott.com/manifesting-truth. And that's where I'm going to leave it for the video that I'm going to publish on YouTube. So blessings to you all. See you next time. And